Okay. Hello, welcome. Make yourself at home. Thank you for accepting my invitation to Big Girl Brunch with Bern, where we talk about big girl things over big girl brunch. For today's brunch, we're discussing dealing with set results or college entrance test results. This was my kryptonite as a as a, as a high school student. Anyway, hello everyone. I know I have different hair again. Every time I go on this podcast, I have different hair, and honestly that's just the way it is. I cut my hair short, and if you watched my newest vlog, I did cry about it, but I'm fine with it now. I like my hair now. But when I just got it, I broke down. Just as you do as a girl. You get a haircut and then break down, you know? How have you guys been? I I actually can't remember what has happened since the last time I went on this podcast, which wasn't so long ago. I've just been really busy. Yeah, I've just been busy with work for a bit, like a week or two. Well, these are the things that happened, if I remember correctly. One, Lucas and I celebrated our second anniversary, which is crazy. It was a really good anniversary. We ate. What did we eat? Oh, I was like, did we eat sushi? No, we didn't for our anniversary. We ate at the restaurant where we had our first date in UP Town. Um, and then we watched Kaguya-sama. And then I was busy with a paper that I had to copy edit for work. So that also took up a lot of my time for a bit. I think those are the two that kept me busy for a while. Just preparing for those things and then executing those things. I I think we can jump into the topic because this is pretty exciting for me because I was terrified when I was in grade 12 waiting for set results because you know you just feel it. So anyway, set results are coming up, or actually some have come out already. I wanted to talk about this because when I was in grade 12, it felt like the most important thing in my life. Like the gravity of it was very palpable, and it felt like my whole life depended on it. Just to give you a picture of who I was in grade 12, or like who I was when I was still taking my basic education. My entire life, I strive to be the first in our class. So the first in our batch. And I graduated grade 6 valedictorian. I graduated, I moved up junior high as quote unquote valedictorian. And then senior high, I also graduated valedictorian. So it was additional pressure for me when we were taking sets because I have to pass all of those, or else why else would I even be valedictorian, right? And so when you're in grade 12, it feels like your whole life depends on it, just in general. Well, because it kind of does. It determines where you go for the next 4 or more years. There's this feeling that you might not pass anywhere and you won't have anywhere to go. And that is heartbreaking and terrifying. And two, there's an additional pressure for me because I was a quote unquote star student. And if I don't get into especially the big four, then my entire life is a failure. That's what it felt like. And I don't know if it's still the case now, but it was the case during my time. So I wanted to talk about this because it actually matters so much to me. Okay, before I get into the sets I took and the results I got, I wanted to tell you about my not so good basic education. I think passing the sets are a different experience for one those who grew up in the province and got not so good basic education for most of their life. Not to say that this is the case for all provincianos, but that was the case for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people. Second, um, those who studied in schools that are not exclusive schools in NCR, and third, those who studied in exclusive schools probably their entire life before going to college. So, for me, I belong in two categories. First, the provinciano experience, and second, the non-exclusive school in NCR because I transferred for senior high. And I'm saying that it's a different experience for me and for a lot of students compared to a lot of my batchmates in Ateneo because for people in exclusive schools, I think you do get a lot more from your basic education teachers compared to us. And it's not necessarily our teacher's fault. That's a whole different conversation. But it's just the way it is. Like, I don't think I learned enough in basic education for me to be prepared for my college entrance tests without either going to a review center or reviewing myself. And I honestly think that sets should be reevaluated in this way because it really is a very unfair system. I'm just saying that yes, I tried to excel and I tried to get the most out of my education, but also there wasn't much to be gotten, if that makes any sense. So it made the sets harder for me. So that made the sets more important, more nerve wracking, more difficult for someone like me. It is an unfair system and I wish it wasn't, but there's so much to unpack there. For me and for a lot of people, it felt like fate decides for you because you didn't have a choice for most of your life. All of your education boils down to that point of taking a set. I don't know. I just feel like I don't agree with that. And there's just so much to fix. Anyway, I took the sets, right? I took four. Typical of me. I took the big four entrance tests. And I did not go to a review center beforehand because review centers are expensive. And for our school, you are never reviewed for your entrance tests. So I just tried to study by myself during that summer and just pray that I had enough knowledge to go into the entrance tests. There are four tests I took just because that's what you're told to do. I took the ASET, which is for Ateneo. I took DCAT, which is for LaSalle. I took USTET, which is for UST, and I took UPCAT for UP. Many of the people in my life know that my dream school is UP Diliman, period. Like nothing, no second option. That's what I want. And if I don't get it, I don't know what I'll do. It was my dream school, right? And this is how every entrance test I took went. The first I took was ASET. The ASET was very fast and very overwhelming because it was my first entrance test to take. I didn't find the questions particularly hard, but the math was, math is just always hard for me. What was hard was the time limit that's given to you. So you really have to have a technique like skip questions and mark them and then go back to them. Other than that, it went okay. And then the next day, I had to take the USTET. Like I was taking the sets 2 days in a row and that melts your brain, man. USTET was okay. Generally the test was okay. The science was hard because I was a Humes girly, so I haven't had science or math in a while. So, it was extra hard for me to try to remember things. But overall, USTET was okay. And then I took the DCAT, I believe. DCAT was probably the easiest of the four for me. And then UPCAT was hard because I was terrified of the right minus wrong thing. And the time limit was also kind of hard, especially with the Filipino part. The Filipino exam for UPCAT was very, very long. And the time was truly not enough. And there was this long ass table that God, that I just didn't get to finish because time was up. Those are the 4 tests I took, and when I took them, I wasn't confident that I'd pass them. So the first one that came out the next year was asset results. And the results came out a day earlier by surprise. And people were flocking to Ateneo to look at the results because it was posted on like a blackboard or like a bulletin board. And I was not in Katipunan at the time. So I was like, oh my God, I can't even see if I passed or not. I have to wait another day to check online. But then someone messaged me congratulating me because they found my name on like a live stream, like showing all the printed names of the people who passed. It's like a tiny font size, but they know that it's my name because my name is it looks very distinct, even if it's blurry. So I was like, thank God. And when I saw that, I literally cried on the floor of our house, just bawling. It's the first set results that came out. I passed that, which means that in theory, I have a university to attend. I have an option to go to that school. So I have somewhere to go. So I was crying and I was like, thank God I passed this. But that's really not the university I wanted. Technically, Ateneo was my second choice. And the next one to come out was DCAT. These results came out the night before a hike. I remember I had to go on a hike the next day for an ocular with 2 of my classmates and 1 teacher for a project that we had in senior high. And I stayed up that night to wait for LaSalle results. And I remember I had to wake up like really, really early. We were hiking and the stars were still out that early. I was like so tired because I waited the night before for results before I slept. I probably got like 2 or 3 hours of sleep maximum. And I was talking to my classmates and they were like, "Oh, how was your TCAT results?" And I think all 3 of us took the test and we all passed, or 2 of us took the test and we both passed. And we were like, "Yay, congrats," and stuff. So that was that. I didn't feel any particular way about DCAT. I was like, oh my God, thank God I passed because I can just like prove to people that I actually am not dumb. But other than that, I was like, woohoo. The third results that came out was the USTET. I looked at my results and I passed. And I was happy just because UST was kind of a totga for me, the one that got away if you didn't know what that means. Because I wanted to go to senior high in the school and didn't get to. So knowing that I passed the college entrance test, I was really happy. But I didn't want to go to UST for college because their creative writing program was very new. So I was scared that it won't be worthwhile. I think it is, but I was scared at the time. And I didn't want to wear a uniform for college. I was happy, but I didn't proceed with the application because I still had to go to an interview after passing, which I didn't go to anymore. And the last that came out was the results for the UPCAT. And we all know how much of a menace the UPCAT is. And a lot of people try the UPCAT, but most of us don't make it. It was the last to come out. I think it was April when it came out. At this point, we were all on the edge of our seats because we all wanted to know if we passed or not. And we know that most of us probably won't pass UP. But we still had to know. And so one day, during a quiet day in school, we finally got the news that UPCAT results were out. So all of us in the classroom took out our phones, refreshed on Safari for me, and I was checking the list, and most of our names weren't there. I remember I was hiding in the corridor with my friend Alex. And while others were checking inside the classroom, we were outside also checking. And we cried. And then we cried some more with the others who didn't pass when they came out. I remember we were crying by a staircase. And I was telling them I didn't want to be a blue eagle. Look at me now. I wanted to go to UP Diliman. But I couldn't because there isn't even reconsideration for UP Diliman. You will have to transfer after a year if you want to go to UP Diliman. After that, I also cried in the jeepney and I texted my mom and I told her I didn't pass. And I was just crying on the way home. I also cried when I got home and I cried for an entire week after that. That's how heartbroken I was. I didn't pass the two options, which were UP Diliman or UP Manila. Apparently, that year, the UPG, is that what you call it? Basta the average you needed for UP Manila was higher than UP Diliman, which is basically clowning myself. But things like that happen, even to people who try their hardest, and we just have to deal with it. So we thought of asking for reconsideration for a different campus, but we decided against it. And you know what? When I got my average for the UPCAT, I swear to you, I was point zero something away from getting into UP Diliman. I could have been a Cal girl, but I wasn't. I was that close. And I felt really dumb before getting my average. I felt like I wasn't smart. I felt like my entire life I've been working so hard for it to amount to nothing. And when I got the average, I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm not that dumb." But, it still felt like I was not enough to get into UP Diliman, which is still sad for me to think about because how can I let an admission test tell that to me when I know myself better? I should have known that that doesn't tell me anything aside from an acceptance or rejection to a university who doesn't know me at all. When I failed the UPCAT, basically, I disappeared for a week. I deactivated my social media and I just didn't post anything about failing the UPCAT. And I cried a lot. I mourned my dream life in my dream school and I considered my options. I weighed whether I should ask for reconsideration for maybe UPLB or UP Baguio, but they were too far, and so I just cried. I just grieved, really. I didn't go on social media, and I was hoping for someone to message me. I think one of my friends did, telling me that it's okay. But other than my senior high school friends who I see every day, my junior high school friends who I didn't see anymore, they didn't message me. Like, no words of comfort, no anything. I don't know if it's me. Like, was it not the dynamic of our friendship that they just comfort me? I guess they didn't know what to say to me either because they know that I've wanted it my whole life. And one of my closest friends passed. So, how do you celebrate your win while also mourning someone's loss or failure? That hurt, but it happens. You're all going through something really hard and terrifying during set season. So maybe sometimes the most respectful way to go about it is silence. So what happened after getting rejected by my dream school that defined most of my life? I went to another school. I went to Ateneo. I studied there. After a year, I realized I didn't want to transfer to UP anymore. And I made the most out of my time there. And I made good friends. And I learned from good teachers. I joined I joined an org which taught me a lot about admin, project management, copy editing, criticizing literature and art. I know that if I went to UP, I would probably still have had a good experience, but it won't be the same. And I think I am happy with the experience I had in Ateneo. And I'm telling you that that could also be you if you didn't pass your dream school. There are three things that you can do if you fail to get into the university you want to study in. First, you can study in a different school and find that you like it, like I did. Or second, you can study in a different school and transfer after a year, which will take you back to square one though. You will have to be first year again, so you're extended for a year. But if you really want it, then you can do that. You can transfer. Or three, you can ask for reconsideration. I guess I just wanted to tell you that, especially if you dream of being in UP like me, you won't have nothing if you fail. Honestly, I think your world will open up after that failure, like it did for me. Failing the UPCAT was probably my biggest heartbreak, even though that sounds so exaggerated. It's one of my biggest heartbreaks, at least. And honestly, sometimes I still find myself doubting my abilities because I failed the UPCAT when I was, 18? But I promise you, there really is more to you than the sets you pass or fail. There's so much more to you. It's so weird because for me, I never went to UP. I Obviously, I never went to UP. I went to Ateneo. But people always mistake me for a Cal girl, which is College of... What's Cal? College of what? What the heck is Cal? But still, that's where literature and creative writing is, right? And I am not. And maybe it just means that even if I don't go to UP, I'm still myself. And UP never really defined parts of me. I think I just fit a stereotype in UP and thought that's where I belonged. But that doesn't have to be the case. You can still just be yourself. I know this will sound dumb because this always sounds dumb when you hear it after failing a set. But I promise you, from someone who failed to get into their dream school, you will find yourself where you need to be. Even if it doesn't feel like it at first. Because for me, the first semester in Ateneo was a wild ride. I was trying to adjust to the culture and stuff. But when I opened myself up, I found myself liking Ateneo and liking the people who I met in Ateneo and liking going to school in Ateneo. It will be okay. And I promise you, you will know if you like the school you're in or not. And you can make another decision when you finally know how you feel. Whatever happens, you will be where you need to be. That's just it. You will mourn the lives that you couldn't live because you chose an option. But you will also get to celebrate the life that you chose. And I think that's good. At the end of the day, sets and the results are not everything. But it can feel like they are. And I understand that. So I'm telling you, from someone who mourned and celebrated and finally graduated, it will really be okay, even if it doesn't feel like it now. You might have to wait a bit, but that's okay. That wraps up today's episode. Thank you for stopping by for a chat at Big Girl Brunch with Bern. If you'd like, you can follow or subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to be notified when a new episode comes out. You can also follow the podcast on Instagram at Big Girl Brunch for more podcast updates. If you have any topic suggestions or requests for the podcast, please message us on Instagram at Big Girl Brunch or at Gelbadoodle, which is my personal account. Thank you for stopping by, and I will see you during the next Big Girl Brunch. Bye!